Oh, here it is. Here it goes. Okay, it's going. Okay. So my name is Sara Cohen, Rabbi Sara Cohen. I am a member of Kibbutz Keturah, where I am sitting right now. I am a rabbi in Moetzat Ezorit Hevel Eilot, the southernmost district of Israel near Eilat. And I received my rabbinical ordination from Machon Shechter in 2017, and I am a conservative rabbi, and I actually get a salary from the state of Israel to be a conservative rabbi, which is very interesting and very exciting, and not the subject of our talk today, so I won't say anything more about that. Today, we're going to talk about ecofeminism and Judaism, Jewish ecofeminism. When Diane asked me to teach today, the original title of the day, this whole day of women's study, I just have to say I had no second between the two classes, so I'm doing Hebrew English so if I get stuck, you'll know my mind. My mind is not as going as fast as I'm supposed to be going with this Zoom day. But nevertheless, when Diane sent me the program, the original title of today's program was supposed to be, it was said, the tentative schedule said, Women, Judaism, in nature or environment, and morality, something like that. So I said, oh, I'll teach about ecofeminism and Judaism. It's one of the things that I have studied and written about, and I'll be happy to teach about that. And then the next day I got the actual schedule back, and the word environment or nature was gone. So, but nevertheless, I think it's an important subject, and it's an important subject in our times of Corona, where people are really trying to figure out their connection to the natural world in a way that's, I think, in some senses unprecedented. I would like to not be a big brother or big sister, as it were, today on this Zoom conversation. So we're a lot of people here. So we're not going to be able to have a lot of group discussion, but there will be times when I'll ask people to talk or react. Just open your own microphone and close your own microphone. Is there anyone here who does not know how to do that activity? Oh, turn on your microphone and turn off your own microphone. Okay, so we're not going to do a round of who's here and where we're from and all of that, because we're just too many people for the time, but it's really lovely to see you all. So we're going to talk about, as I said, one other thing. If you're sitting where you have a piece of paper and a pencil, I want to invite you to, as we're talking, write down connections to actions. We're going to be having a very philosophical conversation today. And one of the things that I think feminism and environmentalism and Judaism have in common is the understanding that you cannot have ideas without actions, and that our ideas affect our actions affect our ideas, and you cannot have a completely separate world of ideas and world of actions. And that's a very important, I think, part of all three of these ideas: Judaism, feminism, and environmentalism. Even though all three of those things have many, many, many different forms and many, many different ways of expressing themselves in the world, I believe that idea of the connection between, I would say, between Agadah and Halacha, between ideas and action, is common to all three. So while you're sitting, if things of action come up to you, come to your mind, write them down. Write them down so that you'll have them when we're done with this class, and you won't just think, oh, it was just all talk, okay? So write it down. And the other thing to write down is any connections that you have that come up for you about Corona. We don't have a lot of time to make all these connections, so I'm gonna try to make it as clear as possible. So the first thing I wanna share with you is oh, sorry about that. Okay. Oh, sorry, my English, my Hebrew one came up. So I want you to imagine a triangle. And in this triangle, my English one disappeared. Oh, I'll use the Hebrew for now. So in this triangle, we have Judaism, and we have feminism, and we have environmentalism. And if I think about the meeting of these three things, each side of the triangle has a very well-developed theoretical base, as well as a action connected. So we know that there's Jewish feminists. We know that there's Jewish feminism. We know that there are Jewish feminists. And part of what we're doing here on this day today is doing Jewish feminist action, if you ask me, by learning together, women learning together about subjects that are important to women. So, and this is a very widely developed, and there's books and there's organizations and there's, including conservative movement organizations, there's books and organizations and theories and all sorts of activity around Judaism, the meeting between Judaism and feminism. And there's also lots and lots of activity and meeting between Judaism and environmentalism. We know that there's lots of action, lots of thought. How can our Judaism inform our relationship to the natural world in order to make our relationship to the natural world more just and more right and more and better for all of us? And how can it at the same time strengthen our Judaism and our Jewish identity? Those things have been written down about a lot and are acted upon, and synagogues have, community gardens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We all know that world a little bit, I'm imagining. And there's also a connection between feminism and environmentalism. That's ecofeminism in some ways, which is saying we as women and we as feminists recognize that how we act in the world affects our environment, and we need to bring that to the forefront, and we need to talk about that. I'm just gonna, my English slides disappeared for a second, so I'm just going to open them up. Give me 1 second. You can think about all of those things that we just said. Okay, so okay. Hopefully it will now come back. Okay, well, we will do without because I can't seem to open it up. Not the end of the world. Okay, so I would like to, so we're going to try to talk about that meeting of those three things together: the Judaism, the feminism, and the environmentalism, and see if how they impact each other. Can they impact each other? Can we use the way that they work together to help us? And that's really the idea of ecofeminism.
Rabbi, can I for a second, can I ask a question? Can you share your screen with the Hebrew one for those of us who understand like a little bit Hebrew, that we can kind of follow along?
Yeah, I can also try. I'm going to try once more to get the. I don't want to close the meeting. I'm a little paranoid about, because that's what happened to me once. I looked for a document and I closed the meeting, but I'm going to try. If I close it, we'll rejoin. Okay. No, it won't let me do that because I'm recording, but I'm going to look again for the, I don't know, it was open. I must have done something to close it. And wait, let's do this. And here we go. I'll be able to do it now. I'm sorry about this. People are, are my generation. Some of us are good and some of us are bad. Okay, so here we go. To Zoom. Okay, back to Zoom. Okay, so there's our thanks for the thanks for the encouragement to look for it, Karen. There's our triangle of ecofeminism. I want to say that I promised tech study, and we're going to do tech study. If it kills me, we will definitely do tech study today. But what we're going to try to do is I'm going to continue this sort of introduction to Jewish ecofeminism, or ecofeminism and Judaism, and then I'm going to try to use the ideas and the tools of Jewish ecofeminism and analyze a text with them. This is a very large job that I've set out for ourselves for an hour class, but I hope you'll at least get a taste of what I mean when I say we're going to use the ecofeminist analytical tools to talk about a Jewish text. Okay, so there's our triangle. I know from teaching feminism in the past that I say the word feminism and it's a trigger and people jump up and say, no, what are you talking about? So for the purposes of this class, I'm going to use my definition of feminism. I will say that I'm sure there's many of you in the virtual room here who won't agree with it. And there's some of you who will say that it's old school, as my younger students often tell me. But nevertheless, this is the definition that I am going to use for this class, okay? So the first thing is that the belief that women and men should have equal rights and equal opportunities. The second is that the understanding that recognizing differences between men and women is crucial to achieving equal rights and opportunities. We cannot have equality if we think equality means same. Then that's an important idea to me, and I think that it's an idea that comes out strongly in ecofeminist philosophy and ecofeminist idea as well. And the third thing is organized activities which support those beliefs, okay? Organized activities which support those beliefs, that's feminism for the purposes of this class. Okay, I am going to now do a radical thing on Zoom. We're gonna do a little exercise, okay? Now, and we're gonna do it not with the little icons. We're gonna do it for real. Everybody anyone who we can't see your face now, you're going to have to turn on your cameras. Sorry, you can turn them off after that. But we want to be able to see your hands. And we're going to do what's called social barometer. Now, we're going to do social barometer in this way. I'm going to ask a question. If you agree, if you think the answer is yes, then you're going to go like that, okay? If you think that the answer is no, then you're going to go like that. If you think that it's somewhere in the middle, you can go like this or like this or like this, depending on the scale, okay? So there's yes, no, but there's a whole scale in between, okay? Now, we're gonna try this with just a question that's not related to ecofeminism. Well, it could be if you want it to be, but it's not related to ecofeminism. And the question is, or the statement is, vanilla ice cream is the best ice cream in the world, okay? Vanilla ice cream is the best ice cream in the world. If you think that's true, you go like this. If you think it's not true, you go like this. If you're somewhere in the middle, you go like this. By the way, you can't say, I don't know or I don't care. That's not a possible answer, okay? You have to take some position, okay? Now, on our next, I see everybody. Very good. Almost everybody took a position. I see Margie, you put your hand down. You maybe didn't take a position, but most people, and I'm also seeing people I know as I look through. This is so lovely. Weenie, hi Weenie. Now I'm gonna ask a question connected to ecofeminism, okay? And the question is, do women have a different relationship to nature than men do? Do women have a different relationship to nature than men? Okay, do women have a different relationship to men? Pick your position, people, and hold it. Because for those of us who are really, really talented, I'm going to ask you to hold your position and also look around the room and see what other people answered. So you might have to use your mouse to see where other people are at. Very, very interesting. Lorna, can you hold your hand up a little bit? Lorna, okay. All right. Jerry, we don't see you. A bunch of you we can't see, but that's okay. We see enough to get an idea. Okay, look, you can look through, really? Okay. Do women have a different relationship to nature than men do? You can put your hands down now. Okay. Does someone who was a absolute yes want to share with us why they said that? One person. Anyone? Volunteer? Just open your mic. Yes, go. Since Susan, go for it. Can you open your own mic?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
all right.
Great.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I sometimes see it, as I was thinking about, I was kind of moving away from the absolute yes, but I think because women tend to be more nurturing and they do a lot more with food and feeding, and they see the importance of taking care of their children, even though that's shifting now. I think there are men that can do this too now, but I think culturally, generationally, over many decades, centuries, women have a greater capacity to have nurturance, and I think they have much more connection to things that are derived from environment.
Interesting. Okay, you can turn off your microphone now. Well, thank you, Susan. Was someone who was at an absolute not? There were less. There were more that was that way, which was I found very interesting. Anyone who was at an absolute not want to share? Was there someone who'd like to share? Absolutely not. Women and men. Was there anyone who was a total down? I think there were a few. Anyone want to share with us why you said that? Anyone open up your mic? Anyone waiting to talk? Anyone who was like that? Okay, well, if you don't want to talk, that's okay. But certainly there would be people, I mean, people did take that position saying, no, women and men don't have different relationships to the natural world. There could be a point made like that. Who was sort of in the middle? Linda, do you want to, you were, but you said yes in the end. Okay. How about someone who was like that or like that or like that? Yeah. Somebody want to tell us?
I can say something. I did like that.
Okay.
So I think it depends as in your culture. I come from Brazil, so I see many Indian men that have a beautiful relationship to nature, and even environmentalists that are men. So I think it depends on your culture, not so much on your genre.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I think that that's very true. This is a very, very broad question and almost not fair to ask because it's such a generalization. But I think that it is the question in the end of the day that any ecofeminist philosophy or activity or relationship to the world in the end of the day has to confront. Do women and men have a different relationship to the natural world? And if it's yes, in some ways, partly it's certainly due to the fact that we are of our biology, that we're capable of giving birth, that we have a cycle that's tuned into the natural cycle of monthly cycles, and because of that biology, we are caregivers for the most, more throughout history we have been. This is a question that has been asked and answered by many different ecofeminists, and even before ecofeminism really, a very famous article by Sherry B. Ortner came out, and Sherry B. Ortner, an anthropologist, said, look, in all, she was made a very huge generalization and got a lot of critique for it. But she said, in all cultures in the world, women are perceived as being closer to nature than men. It doesn't matter if we are or not. That is the perception. Women are perceived to be closer to nature than men. And also, nature has a devaluation. In all culture, nature is less valued than culture. Therefore, that's a connection. Because of our being seen as closer to nature than men are seen, that, and because nature is devalued as when it's put up against culture, that explains women's second class or second tier status in every human culture in the world. And you can argue with the article, but it's very interesting to read. And in some ways, other ecofeminists, some always come back to that question somehow. So that question, do women have a different relationship to nature than men? Sherry B. Ortner says women are perceived to be closer to nature than men, and that counts for both the degradation of nature in every culture, in every human culture, and the second-class status of women in every culture. Simone de Beauvoir said something very similar. Simone de Beauvoir said something very similar in The Second Sex, where she says, in order for us to truly become equal, we have to throw off the shackles of our biology. We have to not be so connected to our biological essence, and that in that way we will only be free. Yes, one question, yes. Somebody wanted to say something or had a question. Somebody opened their mic for a second. Yeah, go for it.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Hi. Right. I was very surprised at the anthropologist saying that, having understood having studied anthropology myself. I was exactly as you started talking about what she said. I was thinking about the hunter-gatherers and the men who go out to hunt require an incredible sense of nature to find the food. And I was the one with her thumbs down. I really don't agree that women have a different relationship to nature. I live in Jerusalem on the edge of the forest, and if there's one thing that my husband likes to do more than another, is to go down into the forest. He hunts with a camera rather than a weapon, looking for the deer, and gets very excited when he finds them. And he's not finding dinner, but he's finding the deer. I just don't agree with.
Okay, that's fine. And I'm not going to open it up for agree or disagree. That could be a whole nother conversation. So, but what I wanted to point out is that Sherry B. Ortner is saying, even if we don't think that there's a connection, the world perceives a connection, and we have to recognize that. And then, but she sees that connection as something that's bad here. Yes, there's a connection, a different connection between women and nature than there is to men. And whether it's really there or not there, that's how the world sees it. And that's a bad thing. That's one whole set of sort of answering the question. And then there's another whole set of answering the question, which is really where ecofeminism comes into play, I think, which is saying, yes, there is either a perceived or a real difference in the connection that women have to nature than men do. And whether it's an individual women or women as a group, or each of us have our own experiences and all of that stuff. But nevertheless, it's something that exists and we should utilize it. It's a good thing. That's my little smiley face there. It's a good thing and we need to utilize it. We need to recognize it and utilize it. And that comes out in ecofeminism, first of all, saying that there's common interest between protecting nature and women's rights, where women are the most, studies have shown that women are the most common victims of earth degradation, okay? You can disagree or agree, but there are studies that show that are trying to show that women are hurt the most when we don't treat the planet respectfully. And then there's a whole segment, and this is where I think ecofeminism really meets religion and meets certainly Judaism, is which we are closer to nature. We do, maybe not closer, but we have a special connection to the natural world, and we're going to celebrate that connection. We're going to have Rosh Chodesh turn into a big holiday where we're going to celebrate us as women and celebrate our connection to the natural world. We're going to use mikveh as a way of showing our relationship to the natural living waters and to renew ourselves monthly and all that kind of thing. So there's a whole section, I would say, of ecofeminist religion, which Judaism can play certainly right into, which talks about the celebration of our difference and the celebration that that we are closer, that we have a different relationship to the natural world. Of course, all ecofeminists, I would say, across the board, are not only talking about women. They're always talking about human society. So if it's good for us as women, then it's also good for the men and for the society as a whole. It's not only for women. And then there's ecofeminist philosophy. And here's where we're going to really spend our time in the rest of this class, what's left of it, because I want to talk about ecofeminist philosophy, and then I want to analyze a Jewish text that is not an ecofeminist text, a Talmudic text, using the tools and using the ideas and using the values that the discussion of ecofeminism brings to light. So ecofeminist philosophy says, using the connection between women and the natural world, or women and nature, to spotlight and overturn the thought systems which legitimize both the degradation of women and the environment. In other words, the way we think affects how we behave. And as I said, I think feminism, Judaism, and environmentalism all concur very strongly about that idea. And philosophy is not just philosophy. Philosophy affects action. Philosophy reflects how we live in the world, as does religion. What we think matters to how we end up behaving and how we end up treating our natural world, how we end up treating each other. Thought is not separate from behavior. And we have to spotlight these models of thought that have led and that reflect both the degradation of women and the degradation of the environment. And there's many ecofeminist philosophers, but I just want to highlight the work of one because we're going to really use this list that she made to talk about the text that we're going to read in a minute. So there's an ecofeminist philosopher named Val Plumwood. She's written many books. One is called Feminism and the Mastery of Nature, and she talks about the master model. And Karen Warren, another ecofeminist thinker, talks about the domination model. So what Val Plumwood talks about is dualisms. And she says that Western thinking, we are so educated, we are so inculcated with the idea of dualisms that we sometimes don't even notice that that's what's going on. It is a heritage from Greek philosophy that has infiltrated its way into all Western cultures, including definitely Christianity, and to a certain extent into Judaism as well. And what is she talking about? She's saying it's not just a dichotomy. It's not just two different things which are categorized as two different things. It's a dualism. So what's the difference between a dualism and a dichotomy? Val Plumwood is saying a dualism is when there are two values put up as if they are somehow against each other, but one ends up being raised above the other. So in her list here that's on the screen, those of you who can see it, she says culture is pitted against nature. And what is raised? Culture. Reason is pitted against nature. And what is raised? Reason. Male is pitted against female. And what is raised? Male. The mind is pitted against the body, in italicized nature. What is raised? The mind. Reason against matter, physicality. What is raised? Reason. Mind, spirit against nature. What seems better? What seems more important? What seems to what we should yearn for and to try to reach for? The mind, the spirit. And of course, there's other and self. So that those are in the wrong category. Self should be on the right and other should be on self should be on the left and other should be on the right. So the male is the self and the female is the other, of course. So Val Plumwood is saying there are these dualisms in the way we think about the world, and if we really want to change our relationship with the natural world, and if we really want the relationships between men and women in our society to be just and to be more equal, we have to recognize these dualisms and overcome them somehow. And my claim is that Jewish texts both have dualisms in them, and some of them also have a critique of that dualistic thinking. I think in the Bible, there are very, very few clear examples of dualistic texts. In the Bible, there are very few places where you see body and spirit being separate. In the Bible, for the most part, I think body and spirit are the one thing. There's not this idea of there's body separate from spirit. The spirit can rise and the body, they're one. Human beings are human beings. They have a body and a spirit. There are a few texts where you can really see the difference between the separation between body and spirit. But in rabbinic texts, in the Mishnah and the Talmud, there are many more texts where you really see these dualisms. Of course, Jewish culture was affected by Hellenistic culture, by Greek philosophy, and that comes out much more in our rabbinic text. And I want to look at a text together. I want to tell you that Jewish feminist critique of texts can do many things. There's two directions that I feel it has taken in at least in my lifetime. One is to try to say, where are the women's voices in our texts? Let's try to find them. Let's try to showcase them. We're going to talk about the heroines who there aren't a lot of texts about them. We don't hear about them that much. Let's find them. Let's put them center stage. Let's dig deep and figure out what they're doing, what they're thinking, how they compare to each other. Okay, that's basically what we're doing here today for the most part in this Women's Study Day. And it's what feminist critique of Jewish texts or feminism looking at Jewish texts has done for the last, 70 years. There's another way of using feminist ideas to look at texts, and that's to say, what are the values, what are the tools that we learn from feminism, and in our case, we're talking about ecofeminism. What are some of the main ideas, and how can we see them in Jewish texts that may not have any women in them? Most Jewish texts do not have women in them. So if we are only going to be talking about texts with women, when we're trying to find the women's voice, it's going to be a very small reservoir of texts. And I'm interested in looking for the feminist voice or the woman's voice or the voice of the other in texts that don't necessarily have women or that have images of women that are very problematic. And that's what we're going to be doing today. There are now, in the next few minutes, there are a few women in this text, but they are not the main characters, that's for sure. So I have to just give credit to Rabbi Michel Zion, who set up this page very nice. I found it on the internet the other day, so thank you to him. This is a text from the Babylonian Talmud from Masechet Shabbat, 33b and 34a. It's a very famous text. I'm sure that some of you have learned it before, if not many times. We could spend an entire semester about this text, and people have, and we are going to spend approximately 5 minutes trying to look at it from an eco-feminist point of view, and that's what we're trying to do. So I want everybody to, when we're reading this text, to remember that we're looking at it from an eco-feminist point of view. We're thinking about Val Plumwood's list of dualisms, and we're going to look and see how they come out in this text, and also, does the text present us with a way of getting over those dualisms, of rising above the dualisms? Because that, in the end of the day, is what ecofeminism is trying to do. Rise above the dualisms and say we have to have a connection to nature. We have to have a connection that comes out of us as women, but a connection that helps us justify the wrongs that have been done to both the natural world and to the relationships between men and women in our society. So think about that while we're reading this text. In interest of time, we're going to only read it in English. The Hebrew is here. The original text is mostly Aramaic, but there's a very nice translation here on the right side. I don't know whose translation it is, don't know where he got it. Someone who knows, Rabbi Michelle Tzion can ask him. He didn't mark it on this page. So do I have somebody who would be willing to open her microphone and read and know that I'm going to stop them and talk while we're reading? Anybody willing to read? Just unmute yourself, anyone who's willing to read, just so we hear another voice. Anyone?
I'll read.
Yeah,
Go
I'll
for
do it.
Okay.
Thank you. Diane.
Okay, let someone else read. Okay.
I'll read.
Mhm.
I'll read.
Okay, Weenie, go for it. Weenie,
Yehuda
before
and
you start, since I didn't see Diane was here, Diane, can you just tell me what time I'm supposed to be finishing? They told me that they changed the schedule, or it's still the same schedule? Oh, she didn't open her mic. It's okay. Forget it. Weenie, go for it.
okay. Yehuda and Ar Yosei and
Okay,
Ar Shimon.
Wait, 1 second, Weenie. R is
What I'm saying is keep the original schedule.
keep. Thank you. Okay. So R is Rabbi.
Rabbi, okay. Yehuda and Rabbi Yosei and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai were sitting, and Yehuda Bar Guram were sitting beside them.
Okay,
Yehuda,
I'm going to stop every now and then, Rini. So just
Okay.
don't take it personally.
Okay.
So we have these rabbis. They're sitting together. They're talking. Go for it. They're all Tanaim, by the way. They're rabbis of the time. Apparently, historically, this is happening pretty soon after the Bar Kokhba revolt, right? So it's pretty soon after 135 CE. The Bar Kokhba revolt was not successful. Who's ruling the land of Israel? These the Romans are ruling the land of Israel. These are all Tanaim in Eretz Yisrael at the time, pretty soon after the Bar Kokhba revolt. Go for it.
Yehuda opened and said, "How pleasant are the acts of this nation. They established markets. They established bathhouses. They established bridges."
Okay.
Rabbi Yos.
1 second, Rini. What somebody else can open her microphone and just say, what is Rabbi Yehuda saying? In your own words, what is Rabbi Yehuda saying?
The Romans aren't so bad. They made it kind of pretty good here.
Yeah, they did good things. They built all these good things, right? And Rabbi Yossi doesn't talk. Go ahead, Rini.
Rabbi Yosef was silent.
Mhm.
Rabbi Shimon answered and said, "Everything they established only for their own needs. They established markets to place prostitutes there, bathhouses to pamper themselves, bridges to take toll."
Okay, 1 second, Rini. So basically, what is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai saying? He's saying, anybody want to answer what he's saying? What's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's answer here?
Selfish. It's all selfish stuff. They don't care about us.
Yeah, they don't care about us. They're ruling the land, but they're not doing it for us. They built these good things here, but it's not anything to do with us. It's only for their own needs. Okay.
And it's only for their really horrible needs.
And only for their, especially if we're talking about the prostitutes and the bathhouses. Right. Remember that the bathhouses were not just bathhouses. I mean, they were really meeting places, and they were more like clubhouses in some way. Okay, let's go, Rini.
Okay. Yehuda Begurim went and retold their words, and it became known Roman government. They said, "Yehuda, who extolled, let them be extolled. Yosei, who was silent, let them be exiled to Sepphoris. Shimon, who disparaged, let him be killed." Okay,
so what's happening here is one of these guys, Yehuda ben Garim, said, went and retold their words. We don't really know what went and retold their words means. Was he, really tattletaling? And did he go on purpose and tell the Romans? Did he just talk about it to somebody who then it sort of ended up and the Romans heard? There's a lot of discussion about it, a lot of different theories about it. It is an interesting thing to mention. We don't really know that it is an interesting to mention that the context of this story in the Talmud is talking about Lashon Hara, gossip. So that's the connection here to this story. So whether or not he was just talking about it, or whether or not he actually went on purpose and was a traitor, basically, to his friends and told the Romans what they said, we don't know. But in any case, the Romans said, okay, Yehuda was telling us we're great. We're going to tell him he's great. Yossi, who didn't say anything, we're going to send him back to Tzipori. Basically, Yossi was from the Galil, and so we're sending him back home. When I've read this now in the context of Corona, I was thinking, okay, they're telling him he can't go 100 meters from his house. Go back from Jerusalem and go back to the Galil where you came from. And Shimon, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he's going to be killed. Okay, go for it. Weenie.
He, Rabbi Shimon, went with his son and hid in the Beit Midrash. Each day his wife brought him bread and a jug of water, and they ate. When the decree came more severe, he said to his son, "Women are easy-minded. They may abuse her, and she will reveal us."
Okay, so first of all, 1 second. We have, thank you, Weenie, 1 second. I'm just going to interrupt you. We have Rabbi Shimon and his son running to the Beit Midrash. That's where they run when they find out that they're going to be killed. But luckily for him, his loyal wife brings him bread and water, and they eat every day. But they are concerned that, or Rabbi Shimon is concerned that the secret might get out. This thing of Nashim Datan Kala, that women are easy-minded is a translation. That is a big expression in feminist Jewish thought. What does that exactly mean? There's a lot of different conversations about it. But here, this text, it seems to be saying that they're afraid that they're gonna torture her and that she'll change, maybe rape her. Who knows? The Romans are gonna do something to her that'll make her give up their hiding place. That expression Nashim Datan Kala has been used against women in many ways, but we're not gonna go there today right now. Okay, so they have to find another hiding place is basically what happens. Go for it, Weenie.
Okay. They went and hid in a cave. A miracle happened. A carob tree and a spring of water were created for them. They took off their clothes and sat up to their necks in sand. All day they sat and studied, and when the time came to pray, they got out of the sand, dressed their bodies, covered their heads, and prayed, and again took off their clothes, all in order that they not wear out. They dwelled in the cave for 12 years.
So what's happening? They're running from the Beit Midrash to this cave, to this natural world thing where there's a miracle tree that's giving them, they don't have to even do any agriculture. They don't have to do any work. It's miraculous. They don't even have to ask their mother and wife to bring them food. They have a miracle. They can sit and they can study Torah all day. It's an image of the natural world that is actually without any physicality. If we were talking about dualisms before, this is a different kind of natural world. This is a natural world that is all spirit. They don't even have to, even their food is miraculous. It's all spirit. All they have to do all day long is study Torah and pray. And they put their clothes back on because, it's not really cool to stand and pray before Kadosh Baruch Hu in, naked. But then they go back and they study and they dig themselves in and they study more. So it's this ideal world where the men are studying Torah all day. Remember, think about the dualisms that we were talking about. So they were there for 12 years. And then what happens?
Elijah came to the opening of the cave saying, "Who will inform Bar Yochai that the emperor died and the decree is annulled?" They went out.
Okay, so the emperor dies. So the emperor who said that he was going to kill them, he's no longer around. So the decree is annulled. They can come out. And think of Eliyahu. What is the image of Eliyahu Hanavi? Elijah, another miraculous kind of character who is eternal, right? He doesn't die, Elijah. Okay, so think about the dualisms that we were talking about. So we have, in many ways, this setup for eternal, for miraculous, for no temporal needs. The study of Torah in its purity, pure spirituality. Okay, go for it.
They saw men plowing and sowing, Rabbi Shimon said they forsake eternal life and busy themselves with temporal life.
Okay, so what
Every
happens,
place
one
they-
second, Weenie, sorry, what happens? So they leave the cave and they see the real world. And here, when I read this the other day again, and I was thinking about coming out of my cave after Corona, I just was what we in Israel call Corona and you in America are calling COVID. But you know, that idea of coming out and seeing the world after I've been in my cave hibernating for a while. And so Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son were in this cave, had this miraculous tree. They were only doing Torah study. That's all they were doing. They come out and see the real world and they get mad. They say they forsake eternal life. They're forsaking the eternal for people, for making food, for doing agriculture. And what happens, Weenie? Every place
they turned their eyes to was immediately burned. A heavenly voice came out and said to them, "Did you go out to destroy my world? Return to your cave." They returned.
So the butt called them. So you're in the cave for 12 years, and then you go out and you come out. And the first thing you do is destroy everything. What kind of thing is that? And now the cave is a punishment. It's not a haven. They're not running to it. They're put there as punishment for what they were doing to the world, to the natural world, right?
They dwelled for 12 months, saying, "The sentence of the wicked in hell is 12 months." A heavenly voice went out and said, "Go out from your cave."
So apparently the wicked are in hell only for 12 months. So they said, okay, now we can come out. Okay.
They went out. Wherever his son, Rabbi Elazar, smote, Rabbi Shimon healed. He said, "My son, you and I are sufficient for the world."
So Rabbi Shimon has changed. Rabbi Elazar hasn't changed. Rabbi Elazar is still furious, and he's still doing destruction in the world. But Rabbi Shimon, who's the older, who's the father, he learned something in the 12 years. And he learned that you can't just go around destroying the world, that's not helpful. Next.
When the eve of the Sabbath arrived, they saw a certain old man who was holding 2 bunches of myrtle running at twilight. They said to him, "Why do you need these?" He said to them, "To honor the Sabbath." They said, "Would not one suffice for you?" He said, "One for remember the Sabbath and one for observe the Sabbath." Rabbi Shimon said to him, his son, "See how dear is a commandment to Israel." Rabbi Elazar's mind was set at ease.
So I brought myrtle, hadass, to show you all. And I have two branches here. And basically, this last paragraph, we're not going to read the rest of the story. This last paragraph is showing us the Eve of Shabbat, and the Eve of Shabbat as a time to possibly overcome the dualisms with a symbol of the natural world, the myrtle, the hadass. And just as the hadass actually is 2 branches are actually 1 branch, that's what this text at the end here is saying, is that shamor, v'zachor, which are from the 2, remember the Sabbath and observe the Sabbath, which are from the 2 commandments about the Sabbath in the 2 different places that it's related in the 10 commandments. You know, Zachor we hear about in Exodus, in the Exodus version of 10 commandments, and Shamor we hear about in Dvarim, in Deuteronomy version of the 2 commandments. And the man is saying there's 2, but there's also in the end 1. And somehow this text is setting up, this is a dense text with layers and layers and layers of possible interpretation, and with short sort of little study of it, didn't explore them all. But my point is, within this Talmudic text lies a subversive statement about the culture which produced it, the culture of the Torah study above all else, and it radically exclusive to the natural world and to the created world. And I think that this text is showing a series of dualisms. We have the eternal life in the cave and in the carob tree and in Elijah, and we have the temporal life in even in the fact that they have to put their clothes back on, and in the fact that there's a farmer. The first thing they see when they walk out the door, walk out of the cave, is a farmer. A dualism set up between mind and body, a dualism set up between Torah study and working the land, the dualism set up between nature and Torah study in the end of the day. A dualism set up between nature and culture and Shamor v'Zachor. And this text is all about dualisms. And it's saying, look at these dualisms, look at the way one is pitted against the other. And in the end of the day, we shouldn't pit them against the other. And it's giving us a way to not do. It's telling us about Shabbat. It's telling us about that on Shabbat we can transcend these dualisms that are actually hurtful to us and hurtful to the world. To pit nature against culture is not helpful. To pit woman against man and to raise one above the other doesn't help us with our make our world a better place, or to make our spirit healthy and healed. And that's what I think this text is telling us, and that's an example of how to use eco-feminist principles to shed light on Jewish texts. Even though the women in this text are, we have a prostitute and we have the wife who might go and tell where her husband is. So the characters of the women in this text are not incredibly positive, but the ideas about overcoming dualism, I think, are really, really important ideas in our look at ecofeminism. And I'll just share with you to end, and I will say one other thing, that the Shabbat, the thing that we're talking about on Shabbat, it's not even really Shabbat, it's Erev Shabbat. It's the right before Shabbat, which what time it is here in Israel. And that liminal time is a special time. That right before Shabbat is a special time. And that's the time that we bring, that brings real sweetness, the sweetness of the smell of the myrtle into our homes. And we try to overcome those dualisms. I think that that's an important message. I just want to share with you, just so that you can sort of end this with some kind of understanding a little bit of what I mean, at least when I'm talking about ecofeminism. And I hope you look back at, if any of you did write, even though we didn't get a chance to share with each other, the ideas of how these things can be put into practice and what the connections to this time period, this corona that we're living in through right now. So ecofeminism is an attempt to change what is seen as wrong in the relationships between men and women and between humans and the earth. And a Jewish ecofeminist perspective recognized those aspects of Jewish culture which justify domination of women by men, we saw it even in the text we read today, and of the earth by humans, which we also sort of saw in the text which we read today, and at the same time locates within Jewish tradition itself, which we saw by studying the text that we read today and by realizing that there's ways that we can overcome these thought patterns of dualistic thinking, locates within Jewish tradition itself the means for transforming the society which maintains those destructive dominations. So the dominations of women and nature are linked, and in order to transform them, we have to transform our thinking. In order to transform our thinking, we have to take action which transforms our thinking. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. It was so amazing to have faces and people from all over the world together with us here in Israel. And I hope we see you again next year and next time. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you so much.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you very much.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, thanks.